WrestleMania 17. We are officially more than halfway through WrestleMania Wednesday. Is that exciting or sad?
You're watching So Off. This is Freddy Krueger saying hi.
WrestleMania 17. It was April 1st, 2001, in the Astrodome in Houston, Texas. Apparently it set some kind of all-time record for the Astrodome, which was later beat by George Strait. No national anthem, which I thought was weird. You think in Texas, you think they'd have George Strait. Commentary was by Jim Ross and Paul Heyman making his WrestleMania debut. Pretty good team. I'm a Paul Heyman guy. They started off with a bang. It was the Intercontinental Title on the line. Champion Chris Jericho defending against William Regal, making his WrestleMania debut. Have I talked about William Regal before? I love William Regal. One of my all-time favorites. He's a man's man. He's a man. Such a man. He's a real man's man. Great. I love Chris Jericho. This was an awesome match. Chris Jericho prevailed and retained the title, but this one was pretty great. I loved it. Just two amazing technical wrestlers. I loved it. Next up was a six-man tag team. It was Right to Censor, which is Val Venus and The Godfather and somebody versus Taz, JBL, and Ron Simmons. I don't really care about any of these people. Taz, JBL, and Ron Simmons won. It was fine. I literally wrote down in my notes. It was fine. Next up was the Hardcore Championship match. Raven, the champion, defended against Kane and Big Show. This was insane. This is where I have my disclaimer. I don't care about hardcore matches. I don't care about weapons. I don't care about crazy shenanigans. I just like wrestling. But this one, almost the entire match was in the backstage area. And it was crazy. They were throwing each other through tables and walls. Kane, I think, threw Raven through like a plate glass window. At one point, somebody got into a golf cart and ran into the other person. This was just insane. It was anarchy. It was crazy. And it was just good fun. It was nonsense. It was silly. The violence was over the top. But I don't remember if there was any blood, so it didn't really feel gratuitous. It was like a Looney Tunes cartoon. It was just fun and silly. I liked it. Kane was the new hardcore champion. Next up was the European Championship. Champion Test defending against Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero won and became the new European champion. This match was okay. I don't really remember it. I'm a huge Eddie Guerrero fan, even though I can't really pronounce his name. Test, whatever. This one was okay. I wish it was Guerrero against like another great wrestler, but it was fine. It was fine. Then we had Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit. This one was great. You won't find two better technical mat wrestlers than Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. Maybe Bret Hart, but even Bret Hart I don't think is as good technically as these two. I think he can tell a better story, he's better at psychology, getting the crowd involved. But these two are just amazing wrestlers, and they put on a clinic, as they say. Great match. So good it even continued after Kurt Angle won because of some shenanigans. It was one of those like what do they call it, a dusty finish or something, where the referee gets knocked out, so Chris Benoit pins him. No, Chris Benoit I think puts him in some kind of submission hold, so Kurt Angle taps out, but there's no referee to see it. So once the referee's back, Kurt Angle manages to pin Benoit, but then when they're doing the interview afterwards, Chris Benoit comes out and attacks him again. It was fun and exciting, but knowing what we know now about Chris Benoit, his anger and rage, seeing his anger and rage as part of the story is a little awkward and uncomfortable. But just taken as a wrestling match, it was superb. Then we had the Women's Championship on the line. It was champion Ivory, who I've never heard of before, versus Chyna. This one was awful. I don't know how Ivory got the title. She didn't do anything. It was a total squash. Chyna came out and just destroyed her. I think it was over in a couple minutes. It's nice to see Chyna as the champion. I don't know how she hasn't been the champion for the past few years, but I would rather have seen her in an actual wrestling match, like against Sable or somebody. I'm sure that exists somewhere, but this one, as a WrestleMania match, it was lame. Then we had a street fight between Shane McMahon and his father, Vince McMahon. I didn't get this one. I mean, literally, I didn't get it. I'm sure there was some kind of backstory that they tried to explain, but I didn't get it. I wasn't watching wrestling at the time. I mean, I guess I can understand, father versus son. That's timeless. Sorry, Dad. But I don't know. I didn't get the story. I didn't really care going in. I like Vince and Shane. I think they've both been a part of some great matches. But when they fought somebody great, both of them together, it was kind of boring. Then we had TLC 2. It was the rematch from the previous WrestleMania, which was a tables, ladders, and chairs match for the tag titles. Edge and Christian versus the Dudley Boys versus the Hardy Boys. Amazing. Last year's match was great. This was greater. Just more bumps, more insane stunts, more crazy ladder shenanigans. This is the one with one of the most iconic WrestleMania moments where Jeff Hardy, I believe, is hanging from the title, the belt, the hook, and Edge is on a 20-foot ladder, as they say, and he spears him, and they both just plummet 20 feet to the mat, and it looks like they both die. Classic moment, classic match, just 6 of the greatest wrestlers of all time. 6 of the craziest competitors of all time. This one was great fun. Edge and Christian won and got the titles. Match of the night for sure. Then we had the Gimmick Battle Royal. This was a lot of fun. It was basically, they brought back a bunch of old school wrestlers: Iron Sheik, Hillbilly Jim, Sergeant Slaughter, Doink the Clown, the Bushwhackers. Basically the old school gimmick wrestlers. In the commentary, they brought out Bobby the Brain Heenan and Mean Gene Okerlund. The entrances for the wrestlers took longer than the match itself, as well it should. It was basically just a tribute to all these great old school wrestlers, and they all had their moment where they got to come back to WrestleMania. And it was, I'm not going to say it was a great match. First of all, there's no such thing as a great battle royal for the most part. And this one, they were all old and past their prime. Hillbilly Jim looked great, but everybody else looked really old and fat and just like they could barely move. But it was nice having them get their moment in the spotlight again, and it was great seeing Mean Gene and Bobby the Brain back. If only they could have brought back Gorilla Monsoon, that would have been perfect. Iron Sheik won, and then after he won, Sergeant Slaughter was pissed, so he came back into the ring and put him into the Cobra Clutch and knocked him out. Here's my theory, and I'm not basing this on anything other than what I could see. The reason Iron Sheik won is because he was in too poor of health to be thrown out of the ring. He would have died. He could barely walk to the ring. There was something wrong with his hips and his legs. So I think he won because they couldn't have him lose because he would have been paralyzed. So I think that's why I think they probably wanted Sergeant Slaughter to win. So they had Sergeant Slaughter come in and they reignited their 20-year-old rivalry. But anyway, it was awesome. Good job, Iron Sheik. Next up is Triple H versus The Undertaker. I think I've said this before. I'm not a Triple H fan. I respect what he has done for the business. I respect his tenure in the business, his longevity, how he has risen the ranks. He's now like the head of the company, more or less, like right after the McMahons. I don't believe he married into the company. I think even if he hadn't married Stephanie, he would be where he is because of he's a political guy, and he's a smart guy, and he's an ambitious guy. And, I mean, all of those things as compliments. I also really liked him in Blade 3. But as an in-ring performer, I've never really cared about his matches. He's huge and he's intimidating. He's got a great look. I don't know. I just find his matches boring. I thought this match was pretty good, but I didn't think it was amazing. I think most people might disagree with me. I think this is a very popular match, and he's a very popular wrestler. But I don't know. I thought it was just okay. Anytime Triple H grabs the sledgehammer, which is like his shtick, I'm just, He's never hit anybody with the sledgehammer. He holds a sledgehammer with his hand on the mallet, and he hits. It's just, if you're not, there's no point in having a sledgehammer, because you're not actually going to hit somebody with a sledgehammer, because you would kill them. Anyway, this match was fine. It was fine. And then we have the main event, which is a rematch. The champion, The Rock, versus the challenger, the Stone Cold Steve Austin, which we've seen before. I believe this is the first time they've ever repeated a main event at WrestleMania. Is that true? Pretty sure it's true. That's how good these two are. That's how iconic these two are. That's how amazing their rivalry was. They did it again. And it was even better. It was a no disqualification match. Although they kind of play fast and loose with that, because there were a few moments, I think 2 different times, where they each put each other in the sharpshooter. Then they grabbed the rope, and the referee broke it up, which shouldn't be allowed in a no DQ match. Don't you have to? Doesn't grabbing the ropes mean nothing? I don't know. What are you going to do, disqualify them if they don't break it? But anyway, awesome match. 2 of my all-time favorites. 2 of the greatest in-ring performers in the history of the business, having possibly their best match. It's marred only by the ending. Stone Cold wins and becomes the champion, but he wins with the help of Vince McMahon, his arch nemesis at that point. So Stone Cold Steve Austin has a heel turn in this match where he turns evil. And it doesn't work. History has shown it doesn't work. It doesn't work at the time. I mean, they were going... Steve wanted to be a bad guy again, and they thought it would be interesting for the character and create storylines. And it does, sort of, but you can't turn John Wayne evil, as Jim Ross has famously said. It'd be like if Dusty Rhodes turned evil and teamed up with Ric Flair. It would be too shocking, it'd be too crazy, it'd be too unbelievable, and the fans would have the fans just wouldn't embrace it, and the fans don't embrace it. But I mean, as a one-off night, it's a great match, and it was a shocking moment. It's just too bad, because Stone Cold never should have turned bad. But what a good match, and a lot of fun, and an amazing way to end an awesome WrestleMania. One of the best WrestleManias so far. I loved it. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next Wednesday, and hopefully it'll be... I feel like I'm just covered in sweat in all of these videos. Maybe you don't notice, I don't know. But Steve, what were you thinking? Shame on you. Sorry, I don't do a Stone Cold impression.